March is Women's History Month. It's a time we set aside to honor women's contributions in science, business, sports, social movements, and so many other fields. For centuries in America, women's contributions in these fields were often overlooked. As a result, they were omitted from history. That's why we celebrate Women's History Month and the opportunity it gives us all to get a more complete picture of our American history.
Hello, and welcome to Voorhees College. Thank you for joining us as we celebrate our Women's History Month kickoff celebration with our Blue Table Talks with none other than the fabulous and the phenomenal Dr. Dorothy Buckhanan Wilson. At this time, we'll have our opening and our welcome from Dr. Catherine Whitaker.
Good morning. I am Dr. Catherine Whitaker, Chair for the Department of Business and Entrepreneurship and Off-Campus Instructional Site Coordinator located in Summerville, South Carolina. I am delighted to greet and welcome each of you this morning for this auspicious occasion, the kickoff of the Voorhees College Women's History Month celebration. As we celebrate this month, we are extremely proud of the continuous successes that women have made in this country. Who would have thought that in 2021, the Vice President of the United States would be a woman, a phenomenal woman? This is only the beginning of many more firsts to come, because we are women phenomenally. Phenomenal women, that's me. That's every woman taking part in this celebration today. That's every woman watching this celebration today. That is our guest speaker, the phenomenal Dr. Dorothy Buckhanan Wilson. Welcome, phenomenal women and men.
We will also have our phenomenal Reverend Singleton to bring us our invocation.
Let us pray. Our God, our Maker, our Creator, our friend, we thank you for another day. We thank you, God, for waking us up early this morning and starting us on our way. And as we've come together this morning, dear God, on this auspicious occasion, we come, dear God, to recognize and remember the great women who championed the cause of breaking barriers and establishing women's presence throughout this land. We remember the Marys at the foot of the cross and she who carried the gospel to the world. We remember Sojourner and Harriet and Maya Angelou, Kamala Harris, Tawana Hemby, Katrina, and Catherine, and Dorothy Buckhanan Wilson, and the many, many others of noteworthy appeal. And in this month of women's celebration, help us to remember that it was not easy, but that God is on our side. God, keep us forever in your care. As we move forward, let us know that all things work together for good to those who love the Lord and are the called according to his purpose. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you so much, Reverend Singleton. And of course, one of our younger phenomenal women in the making will introduce our guest speaker for the evening, Ms. Zatavia Williams.
Good morning. My name is Zatavia Williams. I am a junior majoring in psychology with a minor in sociology. I am the president of Ada Nu chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. Dorothy Buckhanan Wilson is the author of the popular book You Can Lead. She served as the 29th International President of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated and is currently president of Dorothy Buckhanan Wilson LLC, a leadership training and consulting business. Buckhanan Wilson has extensive experience in operations and business expansion. She held senior level positions at Fortune 500 businesses and at the largest not-for-profit agency in the world. As international president of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, 2014 through 2018, Buckhanan Wilson was a change agent who elevated the sorority to new levels of growth. She led the $6 million renovation of the corporate headquarters in Chicago, collected 1.1 million backpacks, raised $12 million for HBCUs, and restored 2,200 playgrounds. Buckhanan Wilson is a dynamic public speaker and has received keys and proclamations to over 200 cities. She is the recipient of over 500 awards and citations for professional achievement and community service, holds 2 Telly Awards for excellence in the cable industry, and is in the 2016 and 2018 Guinness World Record books. Buckhanan Wilson holds an MBA degree from Clark Atlanta University and a bachelor's degree in business administration from Benedict College. She is also the recipient of an honorary Doctor of Humane Letters degree from Benedict College. As the first college graduate in her family, Buckhanan Wilson has always been a strong proponent of higher education. She is a life member of the NAACP, National Council of Negro Women, and is a third-generation AME. She has a strong track record of civic and community engagement and believes the right to vote is one for which many sacrifice their lives and it must always be protected and cherished. She lives by the motto, service to others is the rent we pay for living on earth. Buckhanan Wilson is mother to 2 adult children and currently resides in Columbia, South Carolina. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Dr. Dorothy Buckhanan Wilson, the 29th president of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated.
Again, thank you, and thank you so much. I am Dr. Taiwana Chenault Hemby, and I serve as our Department of Education, Humanities, and Social Sciences Chair. I also have the distinct pleasure of serving on our Faculty Senate board as well. Thank you for joining us for this kickoff celebration. You are the phenomenal woman. You are the phenomenal leader. You are the 29th immediate past president of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, Dr. Dorothy Buckhanan Wilson. Thank you so much for joining us. I know that there is a ton that you're going to be able to share with us today. I am so excited. I've shared in our previous conversations, I still have these goosebumps here, and so they're not going away anytime soon. But before we get started, before we even get on this journey, you know, due to current events, HBCUs are prevalent. We're in the limelight now, thanks to, you know, the Keisha Lance Bottoms of the world from FAMU and our very own Madam Vice President herself from Howard, Warnick from Morehouse, you know, Stacey Abrams from Spelman. you're no stranger to HBCUs. You've always known about their relevancy. You've always known about their importance. So share with us, if you will, just what they've meant to you, the impact that they've had on your life and becoming the phenomenal leader that you are today.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hemby. And good morning, Voorhees College. Good morning, Voorhees College family, and thank you so much, Dr. Hemby. First of all, let me start. We're Southerners here, so I have to make sure that I do the appropriate thing, and let me start by greeting the family. Thank you to Ms. Latavia Williams for that most certainly gracious introduction, and certainly I want to say hello this morning to all members of my sorority, Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority, as well as to all members of the Divine Nine Greek-lettered organizations that might be a part of this particular event. Let me bring greetings to the president of Voorhees College, Dr. Ronnie Hopkins, who happens to also be a Benedict College Tiger, like myself, from Benedict College in Columbia. And also let me bring greetings to those on the platform with us. Certainly when we start talking about women's history, there's a lot that we can unpack this morning. I also want to make sure that I bring greetings to my friend of over 40 years, Marion Wright, who is the director of student engagement at Voorhees. And Marion was very instrumental in making sure I got here. And I'd also like to bring greetings to Dr. Herman Skip Mason, the 33rd General President of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity, who also works here at Voorhees, heading up your, I believe, library sciences area. So with that being said, good morning, faculty and staff, and good morning, students of Voorhees College. It truly is a pleasure to be here with each of you. When I think about our journey, when I think about my journey, and think about the fact that if it were not for my HBCU experience at both Benedict College and Clark Atlanta University, I don't know where I would be today. When I think about the fact that I grew up in Maysville, South Carolina, about 92 miles from the campus of Voorhees College. Maysville is in Sumter County. It's an unincorporated, at the time I grew up, it was where I lived was an unincorporated part of the county, but grew up there with a family of hardworking farmers and those who were not afraid to do what they needed to do. As a result of that experience, about when I was 11 years old, growing up with my grandmother and my grandfather and 3 siblings, my grandmother fell ill with a stroke. And we had to be caregivers for at least 6 years, those of us who were in the house with them. And so we learned about family leadership. So when you think about leadership for us as African Americans, as Black individuals, we are leaders early on. We start leading in our homes when we're young children in many cases. But in my case, because of the situation with my grandmother, we were leaders earlier on. And so did that for 6 years. And during that 6-year period, suffered all kinds of, not necessarily suffered, but experienced all kinds of challenges, having to be children who were doing all kinds of things as it relates to making sure our grandparents were okay. And so during that time, my grandfather started speaking into existence the idea of one of his grandchildren actually going to college. We were hardworking people, had done well in life. But he said that next barrier for us as a family was to start getting higher education and pursuing graduate and undergraduate degrees. And so he decided that one of the 34 grandchildren should go. I lived in the house with him, and that individual ended up being me. And so here we are, definitely coming out of a situation where we didn't know much about college, didn't have money really. And my grandfather decided I want to change the face of my family. And so I entered Benedict College and knew people from Benedict through my high school, Sumter High School, entered Benedict College, received my Bachelor of Science degree there. And then when I came to Benedict College, because we didn't know a whole lot about what that meant and what the college experience was, I probably came there ill prepared like so many other first generation college students. I remember showing up with one piece of luggage, my Pell Grant, promise of a work study job, and about $100 in my pocket. But when I arrived at Benedict, the staff there, the faculty there, they took me in, they supported me, they nurtured me, they made sure that I got what I needed in terms of supports throughout that 4-year period, to the point where when I graduated Benedict, I'd been working almost nonstop during my 4 years there. I had great work experience. I knew how to be a good employee. I knew what to do. And I knew all of that because I was basically taken in by the Benedict College family, who saw me as more than just a student. They saw me as someone with potential. And so they nurtured me and cultivated me while I was on the campus, encouraged me to be all that I could be. I entered school, as I said to you, with not a whole lot, didn't even know what that experience was like. But I came to Benedict, I joined the sorority, I was involved with student government, I was involved with campus religious studies, I was involved with any number of organizations. I worked, as I said before, nonstop the whole 4 years because I didn't come there with a lot of money, but I left with a great education with confidence you would not believe, because being at a school that was also started by a woman. It wasn't an African-American woman like your founder, but it was a woman who started Benedict College. But being there, we were told that there was nothing that we could not do because women started the school that we were attending. A woman started the school that we were attending, just like a woman started your school. And so my Benedict College ended up being a key foundational part of all that I became, not only as a leader, but as an individual, because I left Benedict College. And actually, I had a very interesting experience there. When I was a student, I decided to run for student government president. And I was the first woman at that time to ever aspire to and run for that position. And it was a hard fought race, and I lost by 17 votes out of about 1,700 cast. I wasn't happy with the results, but God showed me later that that's not where he wanted me to be. But what came out of that was that a faculty person at Benedict, who wasn't really my faculty, I didn't take any classes with them, he saw me jump in that race and said that the courage I showed to even step out there as a woman to pursue a position that a woman had never been in before, and then to lose by so little, and was being so gracious in that process, he decided to recommend me for a full fellowship to Clark Atlanta University to get my MBA degree. And I entered Clark Atlanta University and got an MBA degree without any cost to myself or to my family. And so again, valuable lessons learned from the journey. Step out there, do things that you may not be comfortable with. You never know where it might lead you. And so that was just a valuable part of my Benedict experience. So that's kind of how I got to Clark Atlanta, by certainly being a student at Benedict. And so it was a great experience, the HBCU experience at Benedict. And it set the foundation for my confidence, set the foundation for my leadership, set the foundation for me to go on to other things in life. But more importantly, this was an environment where I knew that I was supported from the time I entered until the time that I left. And I know it's the same thing at Voorhees College, because here you are at a school that was started by a young woman who was the age of 23 when she started it.
That's right.
Went away, came back, they burned it down. She started again. She raised money for the school, left a legacy that endures today. And so when you think about that blood that runs through our vein as either students at Voorhees or someone like me who graduated from Benedict College, and many of you who graduated from HBCUs, we can't be anything but successful, because those schools, their whole focus and their mission is to make sure that students, particularly young students who are first generation college students coming to them, that they give you all the support that you need. And I'm certainly a living, shining example. And I tell the story everywhere I go, because that's who we are. And if we don't tell the stories about our HBCUs, who will tell the story?
Right.
Think HBCU was launched as a part of Alpha Kappa Alpha's current international program because this administration felt it was important to generate support for, as well as awareness of, this nation's historically Black colleges and universities. Our goal is not only to generate increased awareness around these institutions, of which many Alpha Kappa Alpha women graduated from, but also to generate financial resources for these precious institutions. Over the course of the next 3 years, as we finish our Launching New Dimensions of Service Administration, our goal is to generate significance, awareness, as well as financial resources for our nation's historically Black colleges and universities. And our goal is to fully engage every Alpha Kappa Alpha member as well as chapter to make sure that we meet this important strategic goal.
That is simply phenomenal. Now, Dr. Wilson, you stated that, you know, you got to Benedict and you were a worker, and you worked constantly. That work did not stop. You mentioned the 4 years that you were at Benedict, but that work by no means stopped. I've read this book. You've packed so much into this book that it is amazing. And so knowing that you are a worker, you've worked, where did you find the time? Where did you find the time to amass all of this knowledge and put this in this book? And I know even from our previous conversations, and I could hear you just through the pages. And I'm reminded of the African proverb that talks about, until the lion learns how to write, every story will glorify the hunter. Why this book? What inspired you?
There were three reasons why I wrote this book, and I'll talk about the work part later. Three reasons why I wrote this book. Number one, to your point, it's important that we tell our stories. I mean, there are a number of individuals, even on this platform, that I know they've either written books or been co-authors of books. And that's important because when a lot of times when you think about leadership and you look out there, you see who's writing the books and putting the stories out. Not necessarily folks that looks like us. It's not necessarily women, not necessarily women of color, not necessarily a Black woman talking about leadership. And since we do so much in that space, I thought this was an excellent opportunity to start talking about what we do and how we do it. And the fact that even though we may bring different backgrounds to the table, that those backgrounds and those skills and experiences, even life experiences, the life leadership experience I talked about earlier of having to help with grandparents, caregiving and whatnot as a young child, all of those experiences end up being a leadership, and it translates later on to other things. So I thought a book was a good way to tell the story. That was number one. Number two, when I look at young people, especially young people of color, I always say to them, well, you need to do X, Y, and Z. And a lot of those young ladies said to me, you need to write a book and tell us what you did and how you did it. And I was like, okay, touche, I understand. I will definitely go back and do that. And so a part of why I wrote the book was so that there could be some kind of footprint for those who will come after us, to look at those lessons to say, hey, if Dorothy Wilson did that, I too can do that. And so that's why it's 30 short lessons, a couple of pages for each lesson, very much easy to read, intuitive, things you can do. Here's what I did. Here's how you can do it. Here's how you can apply it. That was the whole idea, because again, you want to make sure that others can see that if you can do it, I too can do it. And then, of course, after I wrote the book, I said, okay, now that I've written this, what do I do with it? And instead of going the traditional route, with Alpha, Kappa, Alpha women and women in general, we're like, okay, we're creative, we're resourceful. Let's get this book published. So, of course, I went out, found a publisher, got it published, and then became, put it out there and it's okay. Now where are the sales? Of course, you had to go out and promote it. And so a couple of us, and along with some other friends, came up with the idea of a book tour. And so we did a 35-city book tour, sold the book out, and we're now in the third printing. The point is, when you have an idea, go out there and pursue the idea. And I say to everyone here, it doesn't matter who you are, journal every day, write down significant things that happen in your life, put those things in a book, and then do the more important piece of work, which is go back and research your family history and make sure we document that, because if you know anything, who lives, who dies, who tells your story, that's certainly from the play Hamilton, we have to make sure we tell our stories. Our stories are important. And those of us who are now educated, we have an obligation to make sure we go back and capture those oral histories in our families and put those things not only to paper, but put them in the form of a book and publish the books. I mean, there's all kinds of ways you can do that now without a lot of cost to you. So that's kind of what inspired me to go out there and to write the thoughts down. And then really, as I said, I was pushed over the edge by some young members who said, wait a minute, you're telling us what to do. You need to basically take your own lesson and go out there and do this. And of course I did, and have that book. And a second one is being written as we speak, because it's important to keep on the journey once you start the journey of writing and documenting.
Absolutely. And I'm telling you, anybody who reads this book, anybody who gets their hands on this book, we are all the better for having read that. But now I'm going to put you on the spot. So you've outlined 30 lessons, 30 leadership lessons about life and leadership. I'm going to ask you now, if a person could only look at one, they could only read one, what would be the most important leadership lesson that you've learned to date?
I would think it's leadership lesson number one, which is you make the difference. And what I focus on there is the fact that each of us brings something unique and interesting to life and to the table. It doesn't matter who you are. Everyone has something to offer. Everyone is born with some level of leadership skills. It's a matter of what you do with those skills. I also talk about in that lesson the fact that life is going to come and knock you down. Life is going to knock you down over and over and over. Doesn't matter who you are, everyone gets a part of that. You get the good, but you also get some of the challenges as well. It's important that when those things happen, that you know how to get back up and keep going. And what I wanted to focus on is the fact that as women, and especially as women of color, you know, we pretty much major sometimes in being resourceful and resilient, and we know how to get back up and keep going. And so I would say the most important lesson is that use your uniqueness and your individuality to make the difference that you need to make in life, but also have a strategy and a plan for when life comes along and knock me down, I'm going to get back up and I'm going to keep going, because that's who we are. That's the DNA and that's the blood that runs through your veins.
Yeah, that is absolutely correct. Here's my next question then, because I think about this and I watch you and I study you, and you know, in our conversations I've asked you many things, but just as a woman in leadership, you know, you have done it well. In the book, you've shared public pictures, private pictures. You've shared what it looks like. You've given us a bird's eye view into your family structure. Just being a woman and having to juggle all of these balls and to wear these many hats. How do we, as women, make this happen? How do we juggle the balls without making sure that one of them, you know, hits the ground?
That's what you call balancing. And I used to do a workshop on having it all. And I would start that workshop with a comment, and I'll say it here today, is that you can have anything you want in life. You just can't have it all at one time. Because a part of what we're sold as women is that, you know, you can have, you know, 28 things. You know, you're sold all these images and carefully crafted and cultivated images on social media and everything about doing it all, having 7 streams of income at one time, all those things. Yes, you can achieve all that. You can have pretty much anything you want in life. You need to figure out how to space those things out and balance it. Let me give you some examples. For example, when I worked my corporate job, I talked about that in the book, and I was hard charging for the first like 8 to 9 years of my career. You know, I worked around the clock in marketing and consumer brand management. That was a time when I didn't have children. That was a time when I wasn't doing caregiving for people. That was a time when I just focused solely on my career. Then you changed a few years later, and I decided I wanted to have children. I had children in rapid succession. During that time, I focused on my children because I knew that was important. You don't get that time back. I was also involved with my organizations, with the sorority and church and all that, but I was doing local things. I wasn't trying to do anything on the regional, international, global level. Then as my children got older, then I became more active in my organizations and started doing more, started taking on more responsibilities at work. You know, for a few years, I was a stay-at-home parent. And then about year 3 of this, I realized that was not who I was. I needed to be working, and I went back to work. Jumped right back on the track, but I decided to do nonprofit work. I worked selling things and products to people. I wanted to help people, and that's how I ended up at Goodwill and enjoyed my career, basically being a vice president of human services. So did that, and then realized during that time, I said, okay, I have a lot of good skill sets here. I'm applying everything I've learned at my HBCUs and work every day, you know, giving folks hiccups, all kinds of things were happening, good, of course. And I decided the same skill sets that I saw myself applying at work, I could do that inside my organizations. And that's when I became very active on the international and regional level in sorority, and in another one of my group's top ladies of distinction. But I didn't do all that when I was trying to children were not small at that point. They were in middle school. And then as they entered high school, I started doing more with the sorority. And then even on the job, I was always careful to monitor kind of how I took on promotions and what I took on. There was a time when I was working across Chicago as well as Milwaukee. I wasn't doing that when I had small children. I was doing that at a time when everyone else in my family was older and I could handle it. So I say all that to basically say, look at what you're doing, figure out your pace. Even when I was international president of the sorority, you know, I made a decision because I knew we had to renovate our corporate headquarters and do some really heavy lifting during the 4 years I was in office. I made a decision that I was going to be full-time in that position, and that's all I was going to do. And then I came out of that position, and now I'm back at work. So I say all that to basically say, pace yourself, because you don't want to not enjoy life. You want to enjoy the journey of life. You want to travel, enjoy your family, enjoy your parents and grandparents, enjoy everything around your children, your spouse. You want to enjoy the journey, but you can't enjoy the journey if you're always frazzled. You're always tired.
Right.
Oh my gosh, I have this, I have that. You don't sacrifice your health. A lot of us do that when we're younger. Do not do that. You know, it is true what our grandparents told us. Whatever those habits are when you're younger with your health, that's what you're going to live with when you're older. So do the things you want to do, manage your careers. Don't get fazed by anything else anyone else is doing, because half the time they don't have it together. They're pretending like everyone else. But know what you can do and know what you're capable of, and then manage to your own set of expectations.
Well, thank you, and thank you. And another reason that I truly do have to thank you, because you've been so open, and you always are. In every conversation that I've had with you, you have been so open, and you share your experiences on a spectrum. You share the good, the bad, the ugly. You talk about life. And that is so appreciative for those of us who are honestly going through life. And so,
Yeah, you're right. We talk about doing the most, but you don't want to do but so much. You do the most, you might overdo it, because part of what I did, even as the international president in the sorority, to tell you as a leader, get your rest, do this. They give you the 4 or 5 things you should do. We listen to that, and then we put it to the back of our mind and keep running. And then right before I left office, I got very critically ill. And so, of course, when you're lying there looking up at the ceiling in a hospital, you're like, okay, now act like I have some sense. Fortunately, it was one of those things I was able to recover from. And everyone who knew me said, I told you so.
Right.
And so I say that to say to you, don't worry about trying to do everything at one time in the first 30 years of your life. To the students who are out there, you have time. Pace yourself. But decide what you want to do, and then put together a plan to make it happen, and put together a timetable, and then kind of manage to that. But don't be so quick to rush through everything, because if you do all the things that you're looking to do while you're very, very young, what are you going to do when you're older? So the key is to always pace yourself. Even in organizations, a lot of younger women I know say, hey, I want to be this, this, and this, and I want to be at this level at this age. And then I said, okay, well, you've done that. What are you going to do after that? So you have to pace yourself. So everything in life has to be paced out, and you still want to enjoy the journey. Don't run through life. Enjoy the journey of life. That's what it is. It's a journey.
Life. Enjoy the journey of life. Okay, so here's my next burning question. So you are such an inspiration to us. I mean, when we see you, and this is just, I'm thinking in terms of my sorority, our sorority, we see you and it's like everybody wants to get a picture, and everybody wants to have a conversation, everybody wants to talk, and you inspire so many, and rightfully so. But who inspires Dr. Wilson?
I've had, I said, 2 major role models. One was my grandfather, obviously, someone who decided that he wanted to change the face of his family through education, through college, and decided to push one of us out the nest, and everyone else kind of soon followed. And so certainly he was an inspiration, because while he was alive when I entered college, he was no longer with us when I graduated college. So he never saw I'm sure he's looking at the vision from heaven, but he was not here to really see the fruits of his labor. So I certainly am inspired by him. And that's why there's a scholarship endowed in his name at Benedict College, along with my grandmother. I would say my second source of inspiration would be Mrs. Coretta Scott King. And I will tell you that because she's someone, when you think about someone who took basically the challenges of life, things that knocked her down, she got back up and she kept moving. When Dr. King passed, for many of us, that would have probably been something that could have stopped us. But instead, she took that and she used that as just a source of inspiration. Started the King Center, started basically the crusade to make sure his birthday was a national holiday, started all kinds of efforts, still very much involved with women's rights, involved with our sorority, did all kinds of things, raised her children, did all those things despite the basically life and the challenges. And so I say that to say to everyone, find that one person who really epitomizes what you stand for, someone of integrity, of high values and high standards, and say, hey, I want to model myself after that person. In my case, when I saw Mrs. King, as a very young child, her grace and her elegance, and I said, I want that to be my leadership model. I'm not going to be rattled. I'm going to always be cool and calm and deal with whatever life sends my way. And I think for the most part, I'm hoping that I do reflect some of those values that we see in Mrs. Coretta Scott King.
Oh, that is beautiful. Beautifully said. Beautifully said. And so, and I think even for us, as we think about even what we know about the statistics, several studies show that even now, African American women, we are the most educated women out here. Our claim to fame now, we're obtaining degrees at rapid rates. but you and sometimes it's difficult to get us to decide on where we want to go to brunch or where we want to go shopping. But but you were able to lead hundreds of thousands of women. What was that like for you?
It
What was
was
joy?
it was a life-changing experience. But again, when I think about where I ended up and where I started, when I joined the sorority as an undergraduate on the campus of Benedict College as a 19-year-old, just like everyone else, we come in, we have a good time, we enjoy the experience, do the service. I didn't join Alpha Kappa Alpha for what it could do for me. I joined it for what I could use it to do to help others. It came from a family of workers. We were involved with the church and service. We were always about giving and giving back and making the community and the world a better place. So I knew that I would always be active. And so once I joined, 43 years later, I'm still active and never have been inactive. And so a part of that was because, when I came into sorority, I said, okay, what can I do to be of assistance? So I just worked on a local level. At some point, I did decide, I think I could do the regional work. And so I decided to run for regional director. And then when I was in that position, it dawned on me that if I could run a portion of the organization, perhaps I could use those skills to do something at a higher level. And so I became international secretary, and from there was elected vice president, and then ultimately became the international president. And so I used all of those experiences at that time to learn people, to learn how to work with groups, how to build teams, to learn how the volunteer experience, how do you scale it up, scale it down, because I knew how to be a worker, how to be a volunteer. I've been doing it all my life, but how do you scale that up for the kind of impact you need to make in our organizations? And so my experience was very interesting because I kind of went in there with a plan of what is it I think we could do to make a difference. We had programs where we had numbers of backpacks. We were going to basically collect 1 million backpacks and give them out. We were going to build playgrounds. We were going to renovate this. We had a plan, renovate the corporate office. And those things were just, were done with very careful thought and consideration. The other part of that journey in terms of about working with people was that there were, as you know, in our organization, just like in our churches and everything else, there were women from all walks of life, everyone wanting to serve. And so a part of what I did going in was I made the decision it was going to be 1/3 of the members that were on the team of 300 or so, the leadership team, were going to be women under the age of 35, i.e. building for the future. Wow. 1/3 were going to be women my age, those who brought that excitement and the energy to really get a lot of things done. And 1/3 would be those members who had been in the organization for a number of years, who had that institutional knowledge, who knew how to keep us focused. And so made some decisions about that. And so had to really just study the organization to get a sense of who we needed to lead. And those things drove my decision in terms of who actually ended up carrying us forward. And certainly we've had phenomenal growth, and that growth continues even today.
And absolutely. And I can see now even how that's transcending into even just the local atmosphere and the local chapters, where we do believe that we should always maintain that middle level position, but with a hand up, so that we are always connected to those who bring wisdom to us, and also with a hand down so that we can bring our younger leaders up to speed with us. So thank you so much for instituting a phenomenal, 1/3 that we've been able to just adopt as our own. Even thinking about where we are now, there are women leaders are emerging. It's almost, and we've always known that they've been there, but other people are just finding out what type of phenomenal leaders there are. Even Forbes, they put out their list of the 50 under 50, all women, and all walks of life. And so what do you say to that aspiring young female leader that is they're making their way, they're getting it done? What words of encouragement would you leave to them?
What I would say is be very clear about what you want to have happen. Be focused about what your vision is for your life, your career, for where you think you need to be. Be thoughtful about it, and then go out there and do what you need to do, and then add some more to it. We always say be bold, stretch yourself. Don't be afraid to take on new things. When I was younger, before I got married and whatnot, I moved around. I lived in several cities. I wanted to make sure that I would settle where I needed to settle once I got to that point. I wasn't afraid. If there was an opportunity that seemed to make sense for me, I went chase the opportunity. The good thing about where we are right now, even though the global pandemic has been horrible, where we are is that the world has really reshifted. The world has kind of reformed itself. You know, I have friends who work at Google, Microsoft, and Amazon, and they say to me right now with employees, their employees for the most part can live anywhere in the world. They don't have to worry about bringing people anymore to the expensive Seattle to live or expensive to the West Coast. They can live anywhere and work. So I would say to a young student right now who's listening to this, or someone who's trying to figure out where they want to go next, a young woman, this is the time where really you can decide what you want to do, go anywhere you want pretty much to do, to chase your dreams, and you're not limited by geography anymore. I mean, that's kind of mind blowing for folks like us who, you know, geography, everything was kind of defined in terms of where you would end up. You're a global citizen and you can do anything, anywhere you want. So be bold, set stretch goals. Also make sure that you don't forget the people that help support you, to go forth and make sure you have those support people around you, whether it's your family or your supportive tribe. And then the other part of what I would say to you is always make sure that you, at the end of the day, that you're not just working for the money, that you're working to make a difference. You're working to help others. You're leaving an impact, because just like the generation before us, they worked hard to make a way so we could come through those doors. And they opened up the door so we could walk in to leave our marks. And now we're doing that for the next generation after us. Make sure that you're always in place, looking to reach back and help others, and trying to figure out ways to make sure that at the end of the day, it's not just about you. You've brought others through that door with you, and set them on their way as well.
So, and even because I want to make sure that we're beholding to time, but even as we get ready to wrap up and close, I just have to ask, when you were initiated and you had that moment and you were there and this was your first thing, did you ever fathom in a million years, though, that initiation would lead to something as phenomenal as what you're doing now?
No, because remember, I was first generation college student. I was happy to be inside the room. I was happy to be at Benedict College. When I went to the Rush and I was accepted into the sorority, I cried for about a week. Because again, that was a source of pride and honor for our family. No one had ever been in a sorority before. And so I went into the sorority. Now we have other family members now that are in all the sororities, but at that time that was a big deal. And so just being initiated was a big deal for me. And so to now come full circle and have been 29th International President, I mean, I could not have imagined that. I could not have dreamed that on any level.
Well, that is so awesome. And again, I really want to say thank you. I want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. I want to say thank you for just being the you that you are, for being the real that you are, for being the person who shares as you share. Oftentimes, even as in leadership positions, you don't often find that where women are really willing to share all that they have. And you have not put any parameters, any barriers to our access to you. And for that, I am truly grateful. If I do not tell you at any other time, Dr. Wilson, please know that we are forever grateful. But I do want to extend an opportunity for our VP to come before you. And there she is, Dr. Demir Hightower Mitchell.
Well, good morning, Dr. Hightower Mitchell.
Good morning. Good morning. Let me just echo Dr. Shanaud Hemby by saying thank you. This was an amazing conversation. And what struck me was the authenticity that just kept ringing through. So as I listen to your comments and I reflect on even the things that I read in your book, what kept coming to mind was that I actually had the privilege of meeting you back in 2007, believe it or not. You came to Columbia, South Carolina, and you were one of the leaders featured at a Black History teleconference. And there were leaders, there were leaders from not only Alpha Kappa Alpha, but there were also leaders from across the country and the world from various enterprises. And what stuck out to me is that
Davis.
Absolutely, one of our sorors. And you know what stuck out is our younger sorors noted how approachable you were and just how special and seen you made them feel. And so what resonates with me today is that what you're sharing is not just conversation. You actually know of what you speak and you live of which you write. And I'm a personal testament of that. And so we at Voorhees College know a little something about visionary leading women. And so we love having you here. So on behalf of our president, Dr. Ronnie Hopkins, on behalf of the faculty, staff, and students at Voorhees College, you are absolutely at home at Voorhees College. You are welcome. And so you're going to be a tiger twice removed.
Right.
I know you're a Benedict Tiger, as am I.
You.
But we welcome you to the Voorhees family and just say thank you for all that you've shared today.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
And before we go, I too would definitely like to close us out and make sure that just giving reverence and on behalf of our Board of Trustees and our Chairman, David Miller, our interim President, Dr. Ronnie Hopkins, all of our faculty, staff, our students they just simply do a phenomenal job. Of course, the local chapter of Nu Tau Omega chapter that I am affiliated with, and my president, Lisa B. Stokes, as well as Ms. Lil Zatavia Williams in her position as the president. And look, there's Dr. Whitaker and everyone else. So we just, again, say thank you. And we extend a heartfelt thank you. And yes, you have been adopted. You are now a tiger twice over. You cannot leave us. This is it. And any closing remarks, of course, that you have, and we will end with that.
You know, it's when you think about who we are as women, when you think about the fact that you all have the good fortune of being associated with an institution that was started by a phenomenal 23-year-old woman.
Yes.
Who, again, represented the whole thing I talked about this morning. She had challenges. She was basically, knocked down a couple of times, didn't let that stop her at all, came right back and made sure that Voorhees College is here today. When you think about that story, it's just amazing because it's a story of resilience. When you think about all of our organizations, our fraternities, our sororities, our churches, all these organizations, many were started by women who, again, had a vision that they could be more, do more, and achieve more. And they did those things. And so when we think about who we are and the legacies that we have to carry forth, that makes it easy for me to get up every day to say, okay, I have to do this. I have to do, whatever. There's your founder of Voorhees College. When I think about, Mrs. Wright, when I think about what we have to do, it makes it easy for us because we have women who came before us who did the impossible. And so for us now to pick that mantle up and move it forward and to think about how do we do that during Women's History Month, it's not a challenge for us. It's just something that we know we have to do and something that we're equipped to do. And we are fortunate that we have institutions behind us, like our historical Black colleges, that allows us to basically spread our wings, spread our message, and then to go out there and do great things. So again, thank you so much, Voorhees College family, for inviting me today. I couldn't get here last year because of COVID, but everything happens for a reason. I wasn't supposed to be here last year. I'm here now. So thank you again for allowing me to share.
Thank you so much. And that concludes our Blue Table Talks. This will be the first time, but not the last time, Dr. Wilson.
Thank you so much.